Okay, welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
Today we are plunging into a story from ancient times, one that, well, it feels like a simple narrative on the surface, but it hides some truly profound insights about how we see the world, what we think we know.
And the biggest certainty we all face, death.
Exactly.
We're pulling from some fascinating source material today. These are accounts found in commentaries on ancient Buddhist texts, the Dhammapada Commentaries.
Right.
And they tell this captivating story about a young girl, a weaver's daughter.
And she seems to possess this deeper understanding.
Yeah.
More than almost everyone else around her.
That's the core of it.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this story.
Yeah, go beyond just the plot points.
Right. Dig into why it's been preserved. What are the surprising nuggets of wisdom it offers us about perception, practice, facing the inevitable.
It's got layers. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in the ancient town of Avi.
Got it?
The Buddha is visiting, and the townsfolk, well, as was the custom, they invite him and his monks for a meal. Hospitality.
Standard practice. And after the meal, the Buddha gives a discourse. And the topic.
It's something pretty heavy, actually. Mindfulness of death.
Maratasati.
Yes. He's laying it out quite starkly for them.
How so?
Well, he's emphasizing the absolute certainty of death, using phrases like, my life is uncertain, death is certain.
Life is unfixed, death is fixed.
Exactly. He's really stressing the importance of contemplating this, really taking it in.
And he uses analogies, right, to show different ways people face it.
He does. He paints this picture. Those who haven't thought about it, who haven't cultivated this awareness, well, they're terrified when death approaches.
Like seeing a snake right at your feet.
Precisely. Panic. Crying out in fear as they're dying. Just overwhelmed.
But then there's the contrast.
Yes. Those who have cultivated mindfulness of death, when death comes for them, they're unafraid.
A snake analogy again.
Yeah, but different. It's like seeing that snake from a distance. You calmly pick it up with a stick, maybe, and just cast it aside.
No fear, no panic, calm acceptance.
Exactly.
Okay, so really powerful teaching. But here's where the story gets interesting. The reaction.
Right. The sources say, after hearing this profound discourse, this clear explanation, most of the crowd just
went back to their lives.
Pretty much. Went back to their own affairs, unaffected. It just didn't stick for most of them.
But there was an exception.
One exception. A 16-year-old girl. The weaver's daughter.
Our protagonist.
She hears these words, and for her, it lands completely differently. She thinks, wow, the words of the Buddhas are incredible.
And crucially, she decides to act on it.
Yes. She thinks, I need to cultivate this mindfulness of death. And she commits. Seriously commits.
For how long?
For the next 3 years. Day and night, the texts say. Practicing mindfulness of death.
3 years. That's significant dedication for anyone, let alone someone so young.
It really is. So time passes. The Buddha eventually leaves Avi, goes back to his monastery at Jetavana.
Okay.
But then one morning, he's doing his daily survey of the world with his wisdom, his insight.
Looking out with his net of knowledge.
Exactly. And who does he see within that net? The weaver's daughter. He sees her dedication.
And he realizes something specific about her.
He does. What's remarkable is his intention. He knows she's been practicing diligently for 3 years. He sees she's ready.
Ready for what?
Ready for a significant spiritual breakthrough. Specifically, the texts say, to attain stream entry.
Sotapadhi, the first stage of enlightenment.
A very first stage, yeah. A point of no return on the path.
So, because she is ready...
he decides to travel all the way back to Avi.
Which is not a short trip.
Not at all. 30-year Janus. That could be what? Maybe 150, 200 miles? A really considerable journey back then.
And he's doing this specifically for her.
Specifically for her, yes. But also, there's a broader purpose. He knows that when he speaks to her, when he asks her these 4 particular questions he has in mind, it will also create this opportunity for the large crowd that will inevitably gather.
So her readiness benefits everyone.
It becomes a teaching moment for the whole assembly.
Yeah.
Her readiness is the catalyst.
Okay, so the Buddha makes the long journey back. The townsfolk, naturally, are excited. They welcome him back.
And meanwhile, the weaver's daughter hears the news. The Buddha has returned.
And she must be thrilled.
Overjoyed, the texts say. She sees him with immense reverence, like her father, her teacher. She's just eager to see his, golden form again, hear his teaching after 3 years.
But then life happens. A conflict arises.
The perfect narrative conflict, yes. Something so relatable. Her father is going to his weaving hall.
Okay.
He's got a piece of fabric nearly done, just a handspan left, he says, and he needs her to quickly wind some thread for him.
So he can finish it that day. A simple, everyday request.
Exactly. But it puts her in a dilemma.
Rush off to see the Buddha, who she's longed to see. Or obey her father's immediate request.
What does she do?
Well, her internal monologue, as the sources report it, it's fascinatingly practical. She thinks, my father might hit me or beat me if I don't bring this thread.
Wow, okay, so a very real, immediate potential consequence.
Right. So she prioritizes that. She decides, okay, I'll wind the thread first, then I'll go listen to the Buddha. She sits down on a stool and starts winding.
Okay, so back at the assembly, the townsfolk have finished serving the Buddha his meal. They're standing respectfully, waiting.
Waiting for his words of appreciation, maybe a blessing, a short teaching.
Exactly, the usual custom before he might depart.
But the Buddha, it sits there.
Sits there in silence, complete silence.
Why?
Because he traveled all that way for her, and she hasn't arrived yet. He's waiting. The guest of honor, so to speak, isn't there.
And this silence is powerful.
The sources really emphasize it.
Yeah.
His silence is so profound, so weighty, that no one in the assembly dares to speak.
Not even like high-ranking people or deities?
Not even gods who might be present, the texts say. No one dares break the silence of a waiting Buddha. The entire crowd is just held there.
Wow. Okay, so while this intense silence hangs over the assembly...
The girl finishes winding the thread, puts it in a basket, and she starts heading towards her father's weaving hall, fulfilling her duty.
But there's a key detail here, isn't there? About how she's walking.
A crucial detail. As she walks towards the weaving hall, she is looking at the Buddha the entire time.
So even while doing her task, her focus, her heart is still directed towards him.
Yes. And the Buddha sees her walking towards the assembly area, looking at him. He raises his neck slightly and meets her gaze.
A silent exchange across the crowd.
And the girl, because of her practice, that cultivated inner awareness, she gets it instantly.
Understands what?
She realizes from his look, from the whole situation, that the Buddha, sitting there silently amidst everyone, is looking directly at her. He's waiting for her.
And what does she do in that moment of realization?
She drops the thread basket.
Right.
Abandons the task. Abandons the task and goes straight to the Buddha. Walks into that space, pays her respects, and stands quietly to one side. It's the pivotal moment.
And the commentaries add something vital here about why this choice was so critical, right?
Yes, absolutely vital. The Buddha knew, with his insight, that she was actually going to die that very day.
That day.
That day. If she had continued to the weaving hall first, she would have died an ordinary death. Her mind perhaps unprepared, facing an uncertain rebirth, maybe even falling to lower realms.
But because she came to him then.
Because she made that choice, fueled by her wisdom and his silent call, she was about to attain stream entry. It wouldn't stop her death, but it would completely transform the outcome of that death.
Ensuring a good destiny.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So she's standing there. She's made the choice. The Buddha's gaze prompted her.
And immediately, no delay, he asks her the first question. Girl, where have you come from?
And her answer.
I don't know, Venerable Sir.
Okay. Straight into the second question. Where will you go?
Her answer, again, I don't know, Venerable Sir.
Third question. Don't you know?
And she replies, I know, Venerable Sir.
Interesting switch. And the fourth question. Do you know?
Back to, I don't know, Venerable Sir.
Okay, pause there. If you're in that crowd.
Yeah. Or what are you thinking? It sounds wrong somehow. Disrespectful.
Exactly. The sources say the crowd is totally bewildered. They start muttering, complaining.
Like, what is she talking about? Is she being rude?
Right. They're thinking, come on, you came from your father's house. You're going to the weaving hall. Don't you know that? Do you know that? It seems so obvious on the surface level.
They're stuck on the mundane, the literal meaning.
A perfect illustration of the gap in understanding. So the Buddha silences the crowd, tells them to be quiet.
And then he turns to the girl, asks her to explain her answers.
Okay, let's break them down. First one, where have you come from? Her answer, I don't know.
She clarifies. She says, Venerable Sir, I know I just came from my father's house in this life right now.
What?
But I understood you weren't asking about that. You were asking about my past existence.
Where she was reborn from to arrive here.
Exactly. And that, Venerable Sir, she says, I truly do not know.
And the Buddha's reaction.
He gives a cheer, like a verbal affirmation. Oh, good girl! You have answered the very question I asked. He confirms her deeper interpretation.
Okay, validation number one. Second question, where will you go? Answer, I don't know.
Her explanation is parallel. Venerable sir, I know I am physically going to my father's weaving hall right now, but I understood you were asking where I would be reborn after death, where I will go from this life to the next.
And that future destination.
That, venerable sir, I do not know. It's uncertain.
And the Buddha's response.
Second cheer. Good girl.
Yeah.
Validation number 2.
Okay, third question. Don't you know? Answer, I know.
Her explanation here shifts slightly. Venerable sir, I understood you were asking if I didn't know about death itself.
The fact of mortality.
Yes. And that, venerable sir, I do know. I know that I will die. The fact of death is absolutely certain. That I know.
And this comes directly from her 3 years of practice.
Absolutely. That's the fruit of her contemplation.
Buddha's reaction.
Third cheer. Good girl. Validation number 3.
And the final question, do you know? Answer, I don't know.
Her explanation. Venerable sir, I understood you were asking if I knew when I would die.
The specific time. Day, night, morning, evening.
Exactly. The timing. And that, venerable sir, she says, I truly do not know. The timing of death is uncertain.
And the Buddha.
Fourth and final cheer. Good girl.
Amazing. In just 4 seemingly simple answers, she's navigated these huge existential questions.
Right. The uncertainty of past origins, future destinations, the timing of death, and the one certainty, the fact of death. She got it.
So after she's explained herself and received the Buddha's approval?
He turns to the assembly, and he addresses their confusion directly.
What does he say to them?
He basically says, you didn't understand what she said, you just complained. Pretty direct.
Doesn't mince words.
No. And then he explains why they didn't understand. He introduces this idea of the eye of wisdom.
Panyakaku?
Panyakaku, yes. He says those without this eye of wisdom, well, they're blind. Even if their physical eyes work perfectly fine.
Spiritually blind.
Yes. But those who possess this eye of wisdom, they're the ones who truly see clearly. They see beyond the surface appearances.
And this leads into the verse he came to deliver.
Exactly. Prompted by this whole exchange, he speaks the verse. This world is blind, few here see clearly. Like a bird escaped from a net, few go to heaven.
Let's unpack that verse a bit based on the commentary. This world is blind.
That refers to ordinary people, common folk, caught up in delusion, lacking that panyakaku, that eye of wisdom.
Few here see clearly.
That means only a small number of people actually understand reality as it is, impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, the deeper truths.
And the bird simile. Like a bird escaped from a net, few go to heaven.
Yeah, the commentary explains, imagine a fowler's net spread out. It catches lots of birds, right? But only a very few manage to struggle free and actually escape.
Okay.
In the same way, most beings are caught in what's called the net of Mara.
Mara representing what? Temptation, defilement, death?
All of that. The forces that bind us to suffering and cycle of rebirth. So most beings stay caught in that net, maybe fall into lower realms, more suffering.
But a few escape.
Only a rare few, like this girl, manage to break free from Mara's net and secure a good destination like a heavenly rebirth or ultimately Nibbana itself.
Wow. Okay, so that's the teaching moment for the crowd, triggered by the girl's wisdom. What happens immediately after this?
The result is incredibly swift. The texts state that right at the end of this discourse, after answering the Buddha and hearing that verse,
She attained stream entry?
she attained the fruit of stream entry, Sotapadhi, that first stage of enlightenment. Her path forward was secured.
And the crowd benefited too.
Yes, the sources say the discourse was beneficial for the whole assembly as well, raising their understanding. But for her, it was the moment, the breakthrough.
So, having reached this profound spiritual milestone, what does she do next?
She picks up the thread basket again.
Goes back to her mundane task.
Goes back to her mundane task, now imbued with this extraordinary significance, and heads towards her father in the weaving hall.
And her father.
He was, well, understandably tired maybe, and had fallen asleep while sitting there at his loom.
Oh.
Yeah. So as the girl approached him carrying the thread basket, maybe she was still absorbed in the incredible experience she just had with the Buddha.
Not fully paying attention to her surroundings.
Perhaps. And she accidentally bumped the loom beam, the vemakui, the text calls it, with the basket. It made a sound.
Waking him up suddenly.
Startled him awake, and his reflexes just kicked in. Instinctively, he pulled back on the loom beam.
And tragically.
Tragically, the heavy beam swung and struck the girl right in the chest. Squarely.
Oh, no.
The sources are very direct. She died right there. instantly.
Just like that, after everything.
It's just like that. But because she had attained stream entry just moments before,
her consciousness went
immediately reborn in the Tusita heaven, one of the higher, happier heavenly realms. Her physical life ended abruptly, yes, but her spiritual destiny, secured by her wisdom, was incredibly bright.
Wow. The timing is just intense. What about the father? He wakes up to this horror.
He wakes up fully, looks and sees his daughter fallen, covered in blood, dead.
The grief must have been immense.
And unimaginable. Great sorrow arose in him, the texts say, and crying, feeling like no one else could possibly help him with this kind of pain.
He goes to the Buddha?
He goes straight to the Buddha, tells him the whole tragic story, heartbroken, and pleads with him, please extinguish my sorrow.
And how does the Buddha respond to such raw grief?
With incredible perspective.
Yeah.
He consoles the father, yes, but tells him not to grieve excessively over this one loss.
Why?
He tells him that the tears he has already shed, just for losing daughters in similar ways over and over again throughout the unimaginable beginning of samsara.
The beginningless cycle of birth and death.
Those tears alone are more than all the water in the four great oceans.
Whoa. That's a perspective shift.
A massive perspective shift. He essentially teaches him the Dhammapada Sutta, the discourse on the unimaginable beginning, showing him the sheer scale of suffering already endured.
Does it help the father?
It does. His immediate, overwhelming sorrow lessens in the face of this vast context.
And then?
He asks the Buddha for ordination. He wants to become a monk.
And he does.
He receives ordination, practices diligently, and the texts say, not long after, he himself attained Arahantship.
Full enlightenment.
Full enlightenment. So the daughter's journey, her wisdom, and even her tragic death ultimately catalyzed her father's path to complete liberation too.
What an incredible layered story. Okay, let's step back. What does this ancient narrative tell us sitting here today? How does it challenge your perception, you listening right now?
Well, first, it really makes you question what we mean by knowing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Are we like the crowd, focused on the surface knowledge, where I came from 5 minutes ago, where I'm going for lunch?
Right. And do we mistake that kind of knowing for, well, deeper existential knowledge, like, where did I really come from before this life? Where am I ultimately going after it?
The girl's focus was different.
Completely. Those 3 years of dedicated mindfulness of death, just practiced quietly in her daily life, it gave her that eye of wisdom.
That panyakaku.
Yes. Which the, presumably learned assembly lacked at that moment. It let her grasp the Buddha's questions on a level that just bypassed the obvious, the literal.
It shows the power of consistent practice, doesn't it? Cultivating a different kind of sight.
Definitely. And that eye of wisdom, it's not just intellectual, is it? It's seeing impermanence, seeing uncertainty, not as textbook ideas, but as lived realities.
Even while you're winding thread or walking to the workshop or, doing your emails today.
Exactly. How do we cultivate that kind of sight amidst all the distractions of modern life? That's a real question this story poses.
And the suddenness of her death. Right after her breakthrough.
It just underscores the very truth she contemplated, right? Death is certain. The timing is absolutely not.
Her practice didn't stop death from coming.
No. But it utterly transformed her readiness for it and her destination after it. It's such a stark reminder that preparing for the inevitable isn't about controlling the when.
It's about cultivating the right state of mind for whenever it comes.
Precisely.
And finally, I think the story just beautifully shows that wisdom, insight, liberation, they aren't limited by age or social status or how much formal education you have.
Absolutely. Here's this young, unassuming girl, a weaver's daughter, practicing quietly, and she achieves this profound understanding that surpasses an entire crowd.
Wisdom can really bloom anywhere if the conditions are right.
It really can.
So we've taken a deep dive into these ancient sources, into this really powerful, poignant story of the weaver's daughter.
It's a narrative that definitely challenges us to look beyond the surface, doesn't it? To try and cultivate our own eye of wisdom and really consider what knowing truly means.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. If that simple yet incredibly profound realization that death is certain, but its time is not, if that could shape this young girl's life and her destiny so dramatically, leading her to liberation, even in her very last moments, what does that mean for how you live and understand your own journey right here, right now?
Something to think about.
Something to ponder until our next deep dive.